My name is Walter Abbott. I was a Specialist 4 in the U.S. Army. I was a company clerk, so you could consider me a radar knockoff. I served in Vietnam from 1965 until 1966. I was asked to join. I was drafted in 1964 and went down to Fort Jackson, South Carolina to do my basic training. Back in those days, it was significantly difficult to return to civilian life because so many of the people were very upset and or concerned about the Vietnam War. I didn't go back in to the job market. I went to college, and unfortunately some friends of mine, when we were at parties, would mention that I had been to Vietnam, and I would be inundated with questions, vilifications, and other issues that were less than enthusiastic and less than pleasant. Oh, there are several that were really interesting. One of them was the boat or the ship that we sailed on to go from San Francisco to Cam Ranh Bay, Vietnam, which subsequently became the South China Sea or China Beach. The ship was an old Liberty ship from World War II, so it was not exactly a luxurious event. There were 4 decks, and we were on the 4th deck down, meaning that we were practically in the hold of the ship. I had spent a fair amount of time on the water, so it wasn't a problem for me, but as soon as we pulled out of San Francisco Bay, we had a little bit of waves and rolling, and 2/3 of the ship were sick. So that created somewhat of an issue. But the main thing that I remember was when we landed in Guam to take on water and fuel, a typhoon came up and we had to pull out of the harbor, and we ended up facing the typhoon or being directly into the typhoon with this old rust bucket that was called the General Leroy Eltinge. Frankly, I was much more worried at that point than I was when we ultimately got to Vietnam. To me, the military service was a time to grow up. I had gone to college and I partied more than I studied, whereupon I was asked not to return after my sophomore year. So when I got drafted, I realized that had I stayed in the university, I probably wouldn't have ended up in the draft. But it gave me an opportunity to mature, it gave me an opportunity to work with others, the teamwork, the camaraderie, the opportunity to see all these different types of people, as well as this beautiful country of Vietnam. I would never have been able to do that had it not been for my military service. So for me, it was a wake-up call and a kickoff to focus on what I really wanted to do, and that was to get a college education and then go into the professional life. It was a 2-year stint, so it wasn't a long time, but it was a focal point because I found that I really needed the discipline, I needed the focus, I needed the teamwork and the camaraderie, as I mentioned earlier. And I found that it really did provide me with a springboard for future success. It was a tremendous experience, sometimes extremely fearful, sometimes very, very funny, but for the most part it was just a maturing opportunity for me. I think today military service, to understand military service, you have to be directly involved or directly related to someone in the military. Today with the all-volunteer Army, you have an awful lot of people who are not directly involved, directly related to, or familiar with the military personnel that are in the active duty service. When I was in the military, draftees were a major part of the overall operation, and they had huge extended families from all over the area that created a camaraderie as well as a support network. I think today we have an awful lot of people who want to help the active duty and veteran military personnel, and a lot of them are genuine in their enthusiasm to help, but they need to fully understand what the impact of war is, what the impact of PTSD is, what the impact of just having been involved in all of these traumatic stress and difficult situations has done to the various military personnel, and to be empathetic as well as sympathetic to what they have been through. We hear sometimes about the worst situations, which is somewhat the case with all media, but 99% of those who are in the military and those who have gotten out are excellent, capable, competent individuals, and all they want is an opportunity to re-engage with the civilian population. Give them a chance, give them an opportunity, and look openly at what they have been involved in.